everybody, and welcome to the Koach Katlyn Show. I'm so excited that you've come and joined us on the pink couch today. I'm your host, Koach Katlyn, and I'm joined by our special guest co-host today, Dr. Rachel Fenters, Miss for America Strong 2022. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you are here, and guys, you're going to be so excited about what we're talking about today. But before we go on, if this is your first time coming to the Koach Katlyn offices, I want to welcome you. We are here so that you can become all God's created you to be, to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. That's what a coach does, and that's why we exist, so that we can provide you with topics and resources that are going to help you become all you were created to be. To find out more, we don't just want to encourage you one time, we want to keep you encouraged throughout the week. Go to KoachKatlyn.com, that's Coach with a K, in case you didn't recognize, CoachWithAK.com/the show. There you're going to be able to see our past shows on demand. You're going to be able to check out the store, got 2 books, Habits Not Hopes and Slay and Pray. You're going to be able to see how you can book me to come speak at your church, how you can partner with us. We're only here today because of the incredible partners of this show. And so thank you for being here today. And I'm excited to talk today about the topic, influence for purpose. Influence for purpose. You know, Rachel, there are a lot of people you hear, oh, I'm an influencer. It's kind of like the new job. Kind of like back in the day, it was like, oh, I'm a blogger, or I'm this. And it's everybody wants to influence, but are we influencing on purpose for the good? Because we all are going to influence somebody. You know, my mentor, my boss says, everything rises, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And we're all leading and influencing somebody in our life, even if it's just ourselves, even if it's just our children, maybe a roommate, but we're all influencing somebody. And we need to use our influence on purpose. We can let it go by and let it be negative. I mean, we've all probably grown up and our parents were like, that's a negative influence on you, or that person's a negative influence on you. But we have to influence on purpose, and we have to be people who are intentional about that. I love the definition of influence. It says the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. The capacity to have an effect on someone's character and development. We need to influence on purpose. You know, I think about Esther in the Bible. She influenced on purpose. Well, I think about David, Ruth, Jesus. He influenced on purpose so that he could spread his message in the gospel. And so I'm super excited to welcome somebody who is my friend, bridesmaid of my wedding, friends from college. We cheered together, and great friends, but now she is influencing on purpose. So tell our audience about you.
So I am a physician. I work in the hospital full time. I'm a hospitalist. And about 2 years ago when COVID happened, I felt a lot of grief and isolation, and I knew that I had to take my voice, my influence, my purpose outside of the hospital, and I decided to compete for Miss for America Strong. And I represented South Carolina and just competed in Las Vegas in November. And now I get, like Katlyn said, to share my purpose, which brings forth power. You know, you can have a position, you can have a title, but it's not titles and positions that people follow. People follow humility, people follow courage, people follow strength, not position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And you know, you went to medical school, doctor.
11 years.
11 years. She's so glad to be out of school.
Exactly.
But you are influencing on purpose through your title. And you know, just side note, for everybody who thinks that pageants are full of just people who don't know anything, they're the strongest, hardest working people that you'll ever come across.
That's right.
So for those watching today, there are people all across watching on all different networks today. Why do you think it's important now more than ever for people to use their influence on purpose and not just, I feel like a lot of people will idly just have influence, whether it's over 5 people, 5,000 people, whether it's over a whole state. I saw that when you were Miss South Carolina, you were focused on serving South Carolina, and then now it's America. But how can people be intentional about influencing on purpose, whether it's a small circle or a big one?
Well, right now, since 2017, there's been a 150% increase in the rate of suicidality, depression, and anxiety in girls ages 11 to 13. So whether we recognize it or acknowledge it, people are being influenced.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a counter to the worldliness that people are experiencing in school, in their local communities, you know, people are going to fall into that confusion.
Right.
And when you don't have a standard,
right,
when you don't have that to counteract what young girls are exposed to, they're going to be led down a pathway that's frankly very scary.
Yes.
And if we don't have our voices, if we don't have shows like yours, Katlyn, if we don't have titles like this where we can be in front of the camera and say, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if people around you are leaving you into pieces and you don't have peace in your heart, that is when you have to stop and you have to say, I need to do something different.
Right. And I think you hit on something very crucial. There are all kinds of influence in the world. And there are things that influence us, you know, especially with social media. I tell my mom all the time, gosh, I'm so glad I didn't have it so much when I was younger. And it impacts so many people. And that's why it's important for voices to rise up and be a strong influence. So you may be watching today and you may say, well, I don't know what difference I can make. Can you encourage somebody? Can you serve in your local church, your local Boys and Girls Club? Can you make a difference? And the answer is yes. Anybody can make a difference.
Absolutely.
We can choose to serve where we are. I mean, I think about, you know, we went to a very small college to kick it off. And serving where you are is what made the difference. And so you can serve and influence where you are. And so let me ask you this. We're talking about influence. Right now, I believe everybody has a sphere of influence.
Right.
I do a lot of media coaching. You do a lot of, obviously, medicine and pageantry and modeling and different things like that. So everybody has their sphere of influence, and one of your spheres of influence is medicine right now. What are you seeing, and how are you being an influence on purpose in the medical world? I know it ties in a lot to your platform as well.
Yeah, so my platform is Help SOS. It stands for health care that educates a person to love themselves in order to prepare to succeed.
Yeah.
So in the areas that I focus on SOS are science, opioid use, and self-esteem.
Right.
And so when I have patient encounters, when I go into the hospital, when I go into a room, it's with a purpose.
Yeah.
It's with a conversation that people leave better than when I walked into the room.
Right.
And that influence also means that I have to sometimes have hard discussions. People sometimes don't want to hear what I have to say, but I know that at the end of the day, if I've looked at myself in the mirror and I've been honest and I've asked the Holy Spirit to guide me, that when I walk out of that room, it was on purpose.
Right.
And people will know that it was different.
Right. I love that. I love that where you are. So I think that a lot of times people who are watching today, you know, they're like, well, my ministry or my level of influence that I have could only be in the church or a small group. But I love the idea because statistics show that 53% of people will never go to church or encounter a positive place, a positive organization. But we can be the people who go in and make a difference. I love that picture of influencing the room on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessarily, yes, you influence stages, yes, you influence on social media in different places, but you can influence the person in the room. You can walk into a Starbucks today and influence somebody, especially if you buy their coffee, okay? You can influence people wherever you go, whatever you're a part of. And I think that that is the biggest issue that we're facing today, that I see, where people are paralyzed, not making a difference. When all they need to do is plug into what they're involved in.
Yes, and you know, there are studies that show that hope can keep cancer patients alive for a period of time. And I think that we live in a world of hopelessness.
Yes.
And when you have hope, real hope in your life, it changes the atmosphere.
It's so true.
And you almost put it on like a jacket.
Yeah.
You know that you live in a hopeless world, but the hope inside of you is greater than any hopeless feeling that is around you.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. We are in people's rooms right now, and there are people watching and they feel hopeless. What would you say in their room today to bring hope?
You know, Katlyn and I went to college together, and we have grown up around many amazing mentors and family members and pastors and women and influencers, but we still had a period, I know that I did in my life, where I went through what we call a depression. You know, the church, the Christian world sometimes doesn't want to call mental health for what it is.
Correct, yes.
And in that period of time, I felt hopeless.
Right.
But I knew that in my disbelief, God still believed in me and my purpose. So I walked through those waters knowing that at the end of the day, my pain would turn into purpose.
Right.
And my purpose would turn into power.
Yeah.
And that power would lead me to create a sphere of influence.
Yes.
But it wasn't until I looked at myself in the mirror and I went through something and I grew to be able to talk about it and to share and to relate.
Right.
So if you're going through something today, you keep on going. You take the time you need to heal. You take the period to rest, and then you will come out victorious if that is what you wish. You have to put in the effort to get there, though. It doesn't happen overnight.
It's so true. You know, you're talking about depression, mental health, and having a vision for what's at the end of the tunnel. And you know, because in Hebrews it says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. Right. Jesus endured the cross, and we have to endure not the cross, but certain crosses we bear in our life, like depression. I went through an eating disorder depression, postpartum depression. But I do think that having that vision at the end, that hope that you're going to get out of the tunnel. And I know for my husband, Jeremy, who's our friend, you know, when he was overcoming addiction, he said what kept me out of addiction, to come out of addiction, was to have hope at the end of the tunnel. But another thing that I want to speak to, and this is controversial, but so I have a medical person, so also, you know, there is a real disconnect in the church world of saying, if you have to be on depression medication or anxiety medication, you are not trusting in God. What would you say to that?
You know, it's a very delicate conversation because I believe that science is God's relationship with the natural world. Yeah. He obviously created us to be physicians, and he gave us a mindset, a critical thinking skill. Yeah. And everyone's different. I think it's very difficult for me to just tell you a blanket statement for everyone.
Yeah, everybody's different.
I think you have to have a trusted, spirit-filled doctor who can take you one by one and determine if medication is the route for you. Right. Because I find all the time, you know, that I have 12-year-old girls, 13-year-old girls, you know, they need more of a mentor and an influence than an antidepressant. And then I find that there's a mom, you know, that's going through a tough marriage and, you know, maybe has an autistic kid. Sometimes medication does help. Right. And so it's difficult just for church people or medical people to say one way is the answer.
Right. And I love that. I love that picture because I think there are so many, especially with social media today. Yes. We all compare ourselves to other people, but you need to be encouraged to stay in your lane. Influence in your lane. I know that could be one.
She's speaking the truth.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in your lane. Not look to other people because, you know, I remember going through postpartum depression and thinking, well, I'm a horrible person because I feel disconnected from my son, and I feel, which he's awesome and he's so cute, he's like the best, but feeling disconnected. But we need to be able to have open conversations, and that is where it's powerful to be in that church and community of people who are believing in us and having mentors, like you said, who are influencing our lives. So speaking of mentors, you're influencing on purpose. God set you up for such a time as this to be Miss for America Strong. How are you using this title on purpose, to influence on purpose?
Well, I think the most important part of it, and it's as simple as just having meaningful conversations like this, in the airport.
Yeah.
On television.
Yeah.
You know, in the church bathroom.
Yeah.
In the hospital. That influence happens small, but sends ripples.
Yeah.
And when it's honest and true, just having meaningful conversations can change the world.
Right.
You know, and so although I have all these things that I'm doing that may be, you know, bigger, like New York Fashion Week, or
which was fun,
which
right?
was fun, you know, or working with the governor of South Carolina to destigmatize addiction.
Yeah.
You know, it really is about having the moment with people that the noise dies down.
Yeah.
And the connection happens.
Right.
And you really encounter people and you tell them your story and why you went through what you went through so that God can bring you to this place. That's how influence really makes a difference.
Yeah.
People start following someone who knows how to connect and be honest.
Yeah. I love that because this is what I think. So we see a lot of people today and they don't have genuine conversations. You know, you have Facebook friends and you have Instagram followers and you have people who comment on your YouTube channel, but not those genuine connections.
Yeah.
But when we set down our phone, which our phones are fun, I couldn't live without mine.
Right.
But when we set our phones down and have those real connections, instead of, we can influence on purpose, like you said, by talking to someone in a genuine way. And I want to say this, there are some of you watching, you know, a couple of weeks ago was on vacation with my family, and I saw so many parents who, you do have influence over your child on their phone the whole time, not paying attention. And so we're all been guilty of it. It's all good.
We admit.
Grace, yes. I've been the person to walk through and be on my phone. But we have to set down false connections and start to have real connections again. And I believe, what have you seen, just people who've been isolated, the impact of isolation, why community is so important?
Well, first of all, I want to say, you know, talking to the parents that may struggle, this can be a form of neglect.
Yes.
When you are so engaged in this and you miss those around you, you actually create neglect for your children. And that's difficult to talk about. We don't want to talk about that. You know, so going back to what you said, what have I seen? Like, for COVID at least, being isolated in a room by yourself in the hospital on the verge of death, and then all of us in our Tyvek suits, you can't see our face, we have on goggles, we have on glasses. I used to bring my cell phone into the room in a Ziploc bag, and I would FaceTime my patient's loved one just so they could see a familiar face. I mean, so there is ways to use this for good. There is ways to break people out of isolation. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a fine balance between using it for good, using it for godliness, and then allowing it to be used for harm. Right. I love that. And there's a balance. And, you know, isn't it just like the enemy sometimes, you know, we can have tools that are used for good. Because right now we're on media, and media is awesome, but it can also be a distraction. And so we need to begin, you know, you can have bad influences like we talked about earlier, or you can influence on purpose. You can influence people, like you influenced on purpose in those hospital rooms. You're like, look, this is disconnected. My grandfather went through COVID, and he said the worst part was not the sickness, but it was the loneliness. So we can influence on purpose. I think about my dad, who he does his 1 o'clock video every day on his Facebook page. Pastor Rick, follow him. He'll be so happy to shout it about. Yes. 1-on-1, Monday through Friday. But he said, you know, I have this sphere of influence on Facebook, whether you have 5 friends or 1,000 friends, whether you influence hundreds or you influence 1, we have to begin to influence on purpose, because one thing that I see, I think people are missing their life and they're wrapped up and they don't realize who they're influencing until it's too late. What would you say to encourage those watching today? What is one small action step you would give them today to get out and influence and make a difference? I think that you have to stop focusing on you. Knowing that you're not just here for you anymore. like your life is about the kingdom.
Right.
Your life is about purpose and power.
Right. Yeah.
And when you stop thinking about you, you put down the cell phone, you look around you, you engage, and you start to notice that we need each other.
Right.
And when you have that meaningful conversation, you realize that that's why you're here.
Right. I love that.
You're here. We're here for each other.
We're here for each other. We're here to influence. And you know what's something else? You know, I feel like there are people watching today. This is what I feel. You're saying, well, you know, I have to do something big. I have to make a major transition to influence. And you don't. You know, I think about you're influencing in areas you enjoy.
Right.
I'm influencing.
And sometimes not.
Yeah.
You know, having a difficult conversation with a patient is, I don't enjoy that.
Right.
You know, having to say, your cancer has spread to the point where you may have 6 months to live. That's not something I enjoy, but it's being honest and helping people prepare.
Right.
You know, and sometimes your influence means that you have to make hard decisions.
Yeah, that's really good.
But you know, through the Holy Spirit's help and through your training and education, that it's the right decision. Influencers have to make tough decisions all the time. It's not all happiness and sugar and roses.
Right.
You know, it's having the courage to make those difficult decisions and the conviction to say, I will do it no matter what it costs.
I love that. I will do it no matter what the cost. And I love that you brought that point in. Influence sometimes is hard. Sometimes influencing is saying the tough thing. Sometimes influence is saying, no, this is not right. You know, I find myself as a parent having a lot of influence and having to say things like, no, this will not happen. And this will not. But we have to begin to step up and not be so scared. And we have to be able to voice our convictions and our truth in a world that wants us to be silenced.
Exactly.
What would you say to somebody who's scared to speak their truth today? What would your encouragement to them be?
You know, if you're scared to talk out loud, talk to yourself first.
Yeah.
Look at yourself in the mirror. Have that conversation with you. When you start to really love yourself for the creation that God made you to be, that fear goes away because there is no fear in perfect love.
Yes.
And when that perfect love circles in on you and breathes out of you, you don't have any fear to have conversations like this. I'm not afraid to say that I struggled. I'm not afraid to say that I faced darkness. I'm not afraid to show people the pain in my life, the scars that show healing. You know, they were tough and difficult, but God allowed me to go through them on purpose so that He could show that I've overcome and then have that power to influence.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you're afraid, it's okay. Talk to yourself first. Allow the Holy Spirit to use you.
And I love that. And I love this statement that says, do it afraid.
Yeah.
Like everything that I've ever done, there's nothing more terrifying than walking on a stage in a bathing suit.
It is.
But you do it afraid and you feel power from that. And there are some of you who've been paralyzed in fear. You're watching today, you've been paralyzed in fear because you know deep down as you're watching this, you know what it is you're supposed to do. Like you know it so deep down. I don't care what it is, whether it's going back to school, starting a business, going to that addiction meeting, going to AA or whatever you need, getting the help you need to overcome the obstacle you're facing, getting counseling, whatever it is, you know, as you hear our voices today, what it is you need to do. And today is time to get up.
I have a good story. My dad, he was a really good dad, and when I was scared, like getting on a roller coaster, I would sit at the line and I would cry, Dad, I don't want to get on. I don't want to get on. I'm so scared. And literally in those moments, fear would seize me. And I was panicked, but my dad would hold my hand and he would take me on the roller coaster and he would say, I promise that you are going to enjoy this ride. And when I got to the highest peak and raised my hands, I felt so alive and so full of joy, and by the end of it, I love it. So if you're afraid of something, use that fear to make you do it. because at the end of it,
Yeah.
you will actually have more dopamine, which is
Yeah.
you
Bring in
know,
the medicine. Yeah.
that you will experience it. It will be even greater
Yeah.
than you can think or imagine.
I love that, and what a beautiful picture. You know, you need to take God's hand today.
Right.
And you need to go on the adventure, because I'm telling you, life is so much more fun when you use your influence and you do things afraid. I don't think there's ever been anything I've been prepared for that I thought
No.
I was afraid to go to college,
Right.
leave your family, afraid to get married, afraid to have a kid.
And most people would think, Katlyn and I are just not afraid, right?
Right.
Because we speak up.
Yeah.
We do the things that people don't want to do.
Yeah.
We'll be the president of the organization.
Yeah.
We'll take on the leadership roles, but that's not true at all.
Right.
Like, I am afraid, but I know that there's more important things
Yeah.
than my fear.
Right.
You know, fear can either wake you up or shut you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
That's so good. And you know what? You were probably scared to get back into competing again. It had
I
been
didn't
a
know
while.
anything. 12 years.
Yeah, like, and it was a totally
Yeah.
different scene now. And the thing is that, like you said, you just keep stepping up and saying yes to the thing that you're scared of in front of you. And before you know it, you're saying yes to a lot more things, because you're like, if I can get through that, I can do this. If I can get through this, I can do that.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, there is going to be a point where you get to the tip of the roller coaster and say, wow, this is so fun.
Yeah, and you enjoy it, and also because you know that your daddy, your Abba Father,
Yeah.
was there with you,
Right.
holding your hand and guiding you.
Yeah.
He made all your crooked paths straight
Yeah.
to be at the point where you can enjoy the ride with him.
Yes. So you need to get up. So what we're saying is get up, girl. Get up, guy, and go out and influence on purpose. God has a plan for you. Just as much as he has a plan for Rachel as a doctor, just as much as he has a plan for Rachel as Miss for America Strong, just as much as he has a plan for me and everything he's made out. It says in Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he prepared for in advance for us to do. He didn't say it would be easy or it'd be fearless, but it was something that we need to do afraid and move forward. And so influence on purpose. Take a good look today at the area and the people you influence. Walk into a restaurant today, give somebody a smile, get on your social media, say something encouraging, and I'm telling you, it's going to cause purpose. We need more purpose in the world today and not purposeless. And we need more light in the world instead of the darkness we're seeing.
That's right.
So in the last few seconds, tell our audience one last word of encouragement and how they can stay connected and encouraged with you. Do not message her medical questions. Just go see her at the hospital.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Know where you're going and allow God's light to take away all the dark things that tried to kill you.
Yeah. Love that. And how can people continue to stay connected with you?
So I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Rachel Fenters. That's my name. Miss for America also.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Guys, make sure you go to KoachKatlyn.com/the show for all the latest episodes and how we can stay connected. And remember this, you have influence.
Right.
So influence on purpose. We'll see you next time on the Pink Couch.